Hello, how are you? Many people have a cup of coffee every day to feel more focused, energized, to help wake up in the morning. Many people also drink it before working out to have more energy, more drive, to burn more fat. But there are some negative side effects. Some people are very sensitive to coffee and end up experiencing heart palpitations, shakiness, a lot of anxiety, and even insomnia. With that in mind, today I'm going to tell you about a wonderful tea used for thousands of years that can help with all the benefits that coffee provides, but without stressing your body, without increasing anxiety, without making you feel bad. If you want to add a substitute for your daily coffee, or if you can't drink coffee, you're going to love this video. Stick around until the end because you won't want to miss this. It's also an excellent option if you feel the need for a drink that gives you more energy. Maybe in the afternoon, but you don't want to overdo it by having more than one coffee during your daily routine. So, you're definitely going to love it. This tea, which has been known for thousands of years in Japan, is matcha. It has a caffeine content very close to that of coffee, but it works differently because it doesn't just contain caffeine. Coffee also doesn't just have caffeine. It contains hundreds of bioactive compounds. Matcha contains a unique combination of bioactive compounds that work synergistically to promote greater focus, mental clarity, sustained energy, more stable sense of alertness, often without the jitteriness, energy crashes, or anxiety that some people experience with coffee. One of the key compounds responsible for this clean energy effect in matcha is L-theanine, an amino acid that is especially concentrated in matcha. And the shaded cultivation of matcha also promotes the production of compounds like chlorophyll and specifically L-theanine itself. L-theanine has an interesting ability to cross the blood-brain barrier in our brain, and it seems to be associated with an increase in alpha brain waves, which are closely related to relaxation and a calm yet more attentive state. So it's interesting because matcha helps you relax, but it doesn't sedate you. It doesn't make you sleepy. While coffee seems to speed us up, matcha can produce an energy that is perceived as more organized and less chaotic. And it's not that coffee is a villain. The idea of this video is definitely not that, but rather to tell you that different people respond to caffeine in different ways, right? What works really well for me might not work as well for you. The amount of caffeine in matcha alone is already quite interesting because matcha is actually the green tea leaf itself, ground up. So it's different from making green tea and drinking the infusion, where you steep it. Take the green tea, put it in water, strain it, wait 15 minutes in boiling water, then strain it after about 10 or 15 minutes and discard those leaves, of course, since they're tough. Matcha is different. It's a very concentrated green powder, almost like instant coffee, let's say. And you mix it and drink everything. You don't strain matcha. So we estimate, because there are several types of matcha, ceremonial, culinary, but on average, in 1 teaspoon of matcha, you have between 40 and 90 milligrams of caffeine. Just so you understand better, in a shot of espresso, you can have anywhere from 60 to the same 90 milligrams of caffeine. It always depends on how concentrated you make it. And green tea can have between 20 and 40, so it's more than double the amount in green tea, just to give you some perspective. It's interesting for us to understand the crash mechanism associated with coffee, caffeine, and anxiety, because coffee, as I mentioned, can work really well for some people, but for others, not so much. Caffeine acts in our brain by blocking adenosine and promoting alertness, right? And for some people, it can increase the body's activation by raising adrenaline, noradrenaline levels, so it makes the body very agitated, excited, physiologically speaking. But when a person is already stressed, sleeps little, already has a baseline level of anxiety, or is exposed to excessive stimulation in daily life, coffee can greatly amplify these symptoms. That's why, more and more in daily life, people need to be careful when consuming coffee, especially if they are people who live with anxiety. So the possible signs you might notice if coffee has crossed that line for you are trembling, palpitations, irritability, feelings of anxiety, discomfort, internal restlessness, gastric discomfort, which can also happen to some people, and difficulty concentrating, because sometimes it makes you so jittery that you can't focus on just one thing. So some people end up on an energy roller coaster because coffee gives you a spike of energy. Since you have a lot of adrenaline and noradrenaline, this ends up depleting your energy, and then you feel drained, exhausted, and you get that sudden drop in energy. When you experience that crash, right, that drop in energy, you think, I need more energy, I'll have another coffee. And that's when the mess happens, and you end up riding these highs and lows throughout the day. This specific combination of L-theanine with caffeine in matcha has been increasingly studied because L-theanine boosts your attention and concentration, can reduce mental fatigue, and enhance cognitive performance. So the hypothesis is that caffeine increases alertness, right? It will have that same effect on you, but L-theanine can modulate this aspect of overstimulation, preventing that crash I mentioned to you. So it's not just like, oh yeah, it's going to give me more energy. It's a more sustainable, more gradual energy of higher quality and more stable. Some people even describe matcha as a drink that helps provide mental clarity, organize your thoughts, more than simply stimulating you for the sake of stimulation, making you jittery, you know? As I mentioned before, matcha can work as a substitute for coffee for people who have anxiety or experience those side effects, but it can also work for people who, when they drink more than one coffee a day, there are people who have a little coffee in the morning, right? That routine. And in the afternoon, they feel like having more coffee. Keep drinking coffee in the afternoon to be productive at work, to feel stimulated. And then at night, they can't sleep. So matcha can work well at that time, meaning you could keep your morning coffee, but replace the coffee, all the coffees you have after lunch, for example, with matcha. So you get that energy without the crash, without the anxiety, and without harming your sleep as well. So it works really well for people who have those symptoms of anxiety, shakiness, palpitations, gastric discomfort associated with coffee consumption, for those who are always tired, more on edge. There are people who are really wired, really restless, but you can tell they're actually tired, you know? You notice their thinking isn't very clear, they're unmotivated, really tired, but still agitated. People who need prolonged mental focus, a lot of intellectual work, lots of studying, lots of writing, preparing for exams, for civil service tests, or very long meetings, matcha works extremely well for them. It also works well for women in menopause or perimenopause who report experiencing a lot of mental fog, you know, that cognitive deficiency, cognitive fatigue, and for those who want to reduce their coffee intake, right, without completely giving up caffeine. To prepare matcha, you usually start with a small amount and gradually increase it according to your own perception of how it works for you. So usually people don't use boiling water because if you put matcha in boiling water, it will become very bitter and worsen the sensory experience. It's the same thing as with coffee, right? It's not that water that's boiling and bubbling, but just a little before that. So if you don't really have a way to check that, when the first bubbles start to appear in the already filtered or previously sanitized water, you wait until it's at a temperature close to boiling, but not actually boiling, then add a teaspoon or even half a teaspoon if you want it even smaller to start making the matcha and dissolve it. Matcha doesn't dissolve like instant coffee, even though I made that comparison at the beginning, right? It actually has a bit more difficulty dissolving. So to dissolve it well, there are traditional Chinese bamboo whisks. But you know that little mixer we use to froth milk, the one that goes with a battery and a little wand? That one is really great for mixing matcha, or you can also add it to your shake or smoothie and blend it in the blender, whatever works for you. So many people who aren't used to it, because matcha comes from green tea, so it's slightly bitter, actually like to do this. Add it to whey protein, add it to milk, add it to some kind of naturally sweeter drink to cut a bit of the bitterness of the matcha. Also, keep in mind that you can add cinnamon, cloves, ginger, or other spices to give it more aroma. If you like, write to me here in the comments about how you usually drink your coffee or your teas in your daily routine, and if you haven't liked the video yet, take the opportunity to give it a like. So, the most common mistakes when you start drinking matcha are thinking that it's too weak, underestimating matcha, and immediately consuming a very large amount like a tablespoon without any adaptation. So don't do that because the amount of caffeine is very high, and obviously if you overdo the dose, you'll keep having the same problems: palpitations, irritability, restlessness, discomfort, because as you've already noticed, the amount of caffeine is very large. Also, you can't expect matcha to taste like a cappuccino, a dessert, a coffee. It doesn't. It's more like green tea, okay? So the flavor is a bit subtle, but if you prepare it with very hot water, the taste will be more bitter. So that's also a very common mistake. Another thing is, sometimes people say, I'm going to start using matcha and I'll have a healthy, fit life. It won't replace stress, poor sleep, and unbalanced diet, so you still need to maintain a healthy lifestyle. It helps you a lot as a compliment, but it's not a miracle, right? And there's an extra wonderful bonus, because with matcha, since you consume the whole leaf that's ultra ground and powdered, you greatly increase your exposure to bioactive compounds. On top of everything, matcha is super rich in compounds like catechins, especially EGCG, which has been studied for many years in relation to cellular protection, reducing inflammation, decreasing oxidative stress, improving metabolism, and cardiovascular health. So there's also a very interesting biological and physiological aspect to it. Maybe we don't need to think like this. I'm going to replace coffee with matcha, but maybe I'll try matcha to see if it fits into my routine. If I like it, if I can tolerate the taste. If you want to add a few drops of stevia, that's no problem at all, but don't add sugar, okay? Because then you lose some of the benefits. But that's the thing, right? Sometimes you can add matcha to your routine as a complement. Let me know if you got interested, if you've already tried it, or if you're excited to give it a try. I'd love to see your comment. Leave a like on the video to help me out and share it with someone you know will enjoy it or who needs it. Let's spread this chain of kindness. It's what I want for the channel. See you next time. Bye.